Europe's deep tech revolution is happening right now. And if you're a founder thinking about where to build your next breakthrough company, you need to understand what's really driving this ecosystem forward. The numbers tell a compelling story. EU-backed startups have already created over $520 billion in enterprise value, despite receiving only 5% of total EU innovation funding. That's the kind of efficiency that gets investors' attention. When we talk about deep tech in Europe, we're not just talking about another app or software platform. We're talking about quantum computing, advanced photonics, semiconductor technology, and biotech innovations that take years to develop, but can reshape entire industries. These are the companies that require patient capital, regulatory clarity, and access to world-class research institutions. Europe offers all three in ways that other regions struggle to match. The tale of two cities really comes down to Berlin versus London, and the choice between them reveals something fundamental about what different types of founders value. London still leads in venture capital investments, with over £4 billion flowing into tech companies since 2016. The city dominates fintech and artificial intelligence, with major deals like TransferWise's £211 million round showing the scale of capital available. London offers immediate access to wealthy consumers, established financial markets, and a regulatory environment that's been refined over decades. But here's where it gets interesting. When you survey actual founders about where they'd start their companies today, Berlin comes within 1% of London's popularity. That's remarkable when you consider the funding gap. Berlin attracts founders for different reasons. The cost of living is significantly lower, which means your runway stretches further, and you can attract talent without breaking the bank. Every 20 minutes, a startup launches in Berlin. The city has become a magnet for hardware and Internet of Things companies, partly because of Germany's automotive sector and manufacturing expertise. The regulatory landscape in Europe provides something that's increasingly rare in the global tech ecosystem: predictability. The EU's new Startup and Scale-up strategy, launched in 2025, aims to make Europe the best place in the world to launch and grow technology-driven companies. This isn't just political rhetoric. The strategy includes specific legislative measures, policy support, and financial backing designed to keep European companies from relocating to other regions. Consider how this regulatory stability plays out in practice. The EU's approach to artificial intelligence regulation, while initially seen as burdensome, is now creating a competitive advantage. Companies that build AI systems compliant with European standards can operate globally with confidence, knowing they've met the highest regulatory bar. This matters enormously for deep tech companies whose products often involve critical infrastructure or sensitive applications. ASML provides the perfect case study for how European deep tech companies can build sustainable long-term business models. The Dutch company has become the world's only supplier of extreme ultraviolet lithography machines, the tools needed to manufacture the most advanced semiconductor chips. Their business model is fascinating from a founder's perspective. They don't just sell machines, they create an entire ecosystem of dependency.
ASML's approach shows how deep tech companies can achieve what software companies dream of: true competitive moats. Their machines cost over $200 million each, require years of customer integration, and become central to their clients' manufacturing processes. The company projects annual sales between $44 and $60 billion by 2030, with gross margins between 56 and 60%. That's the kind of long-term thinking that European capital markets increasingly support. The key insight for founders is that ASML didn't achieve this overnight. They spent decades building relationships with research institutions, developing proprietary technology, and creating switching costs that make customer retention almost automatic. This patient approach to building deep tech companies is where Europe's regulatory stability becomes a genuine competitive advantage. The European Innovation Council has emerged as a critical piece of infrastructure for deep tech founders. Unlike traditional venture capital, the EIC provides both grants and equity investments, allowing companies to pursue longer development cycles without the pressure for immediate returns. Companies like Semiquan, which raised $17.5 million in blended financing, show how this model works in practice. What's particularly compelling about Europe's deep tech ecosystem is how it's addressing the valley of death that kills so many promising technologies. The gap between research and commercialization has historically been where European innovations died, even as the underlying science was world-class. The new funding mechanisms combined with regulatory clarity are finally bridging this gap. For founders considering where to build their deep tech companies, Europe offers something unique: the combination of world-class research institutions, patient capital, regulatory predictability, and access to global markets. Whether you choose Berlin's cost-effective innovation hub or London's financial powerhouse, you're building in an ecosystem designed for the long-term thinking that deep tech requires. The question isn't whether Europe can compete in deep tech. The question is whether founders will recognize the advantages of building in a region that's finally aligned its regulatory framework, funding mechanisms, and research infrastructure around supporting the next generation of breakthrough technologies.